Hello, everybody. Good morning. How are you? Can everybody hear me? Awesome. Welcome, you guys. Did everybody have a great weekend? Do anything exciting over the weekend? I know it was beautiful here in Pittsburgh. Very cool. Where are you traveling to, Karen? It is actually raining right now, so it's not really a pretty day today, but we did have a really nice, cool weekend. It's finally nice to have a little bit of a cooler weather here, although I'm not complaining. I'd rather have it be warm than cold. Oh, nice. Very, very cool. Yes, I love it. I'm a big fan of that wine. Very, very cool. All right, well, enjoy your time there. And we're going to start a new week here, week 2. How do you guys think the first week went with your projects? Did you struggle? Did you feel like you enjoyed the assignment so far? You're kind of building upon this 8-page magazine currently. So you started the editorial process and the page numbering. Was it challenging? Was it pretty much what you thought it was going to be? A lot of work, more work than you thought? Maybe it was easy, struggle a little bit. Yeah, it's a lot of, a lot of details, especially with the style sheets. I saw that some of you guys struggled with, just a few of you struggled with certain things in your style sheets. I always do see people struggling with the folio page numbers as well. So if I had made a comment to your work last week to check out the lectures, that's only because I go over every single thing that you guys need to do for each project in lecture. So if I see that you're not doing it correctly, as far as like some of the processes, I know you didn't watch the lecture. So it's kind of like a tall tale sign that, hey, that's not really how you set up page numbers on each page. You need to use your master pages, and I showed how to do that in lecture. So page numbers, yep. So a lot of people who I know didn't watch the lecture, or maybe forgot after they watched the lecture, applied the page numbering on the actual pages and not the master page as I showed in lecture. Yeah, so the page numbering, if you, did you watch the lecture, Jeremy? Yeah, you should be doing it manually only because if you had like a 200-page magazine, which typically, you know, when you do have a magazine, it's more than 8 pages. You don't want to go in there and change each page number, you know, manually, because that would just take way too much time. So doing it so that it's not manual but through the master page is really important. And I can go over that again, but I did go over that step by step in the lecture. So if you need to kind of review that, like I said, I can go over it again. But yeah, so it's all just about dealing it with the master pages. Okay. So before we start anything, just to talk about what's due and when, you guys need your discussion post done, initial post done by Wednesday. So make sure, I'm going to review that today, and then just make sure you're posting that before Wednesday. That way you guys can get the conversation started and gain the most out of the discussions during this week and have time to respond. Assignment 2 and assessment 2. Well, assignment 2 will be the next part of your page design, but I still want you guys to go back and make those changes from week 1. Make sure you're making those changes as you go forward into your week 2 work, so that at the end, when we're finalizing your magazine, you're not dealing with all these changes. So assignment 2 will be kind of building upon the next set of pages And then assessment 2 will be a quiz. So just kind of a heads up there. Before we get any more further into the lecture, did anybody have any questions besides, I know you guys want to go over the page numbering again, but any other questions? The folio, yeah. Any other questions about anything that we've talked about so far? Just page numbers, okay. Very cool. Okay, so we're gonna just be going over your discussion first, and then your assignment 2, I'll do a little overview as well, and then I will kind of discuss the folio as well, just kind of review that again. Start off with a little quote here by Paul Rand. He says, "To design is much more than simply to assemble, to order, or even to edit. It is to add value and meaning, to illuminate, to simplify, to clarify, to modify, to dignify, to dramatize, to persuade, and perhaps even amuse." There's so much more to design than it is just to assemble things. Kind of inspirational there. So there's a lot that goes into design. I think a lot of people sometimes underestimate the process that goes into it as well. So as designers, you know, it is our responsibility to create these visually pleasing, functional designs that work. All right, so let's go ahead and check out. Let me share my screen here. So as we go into week 2, we always have objectives that you guys will be walking away from learning every week. And a lot of these learning objectives are things that we will be also not only just learning this week, but building from last week and going into the next week. So like, for instance, this first learning objective says discuss how styles enable better design and more efficient workflow. Well, we kind of talked about that last week, but we're going to be actually discussing it this week. So a lot of this stuff is kind of review too. We're working with style sheets, so you get to see the function of them and the purpose. And now we're going to discuss that. Identify and discuss 3 strategies to create an efficient workflow to create a multi-page project. We were discussing that as well in week 1. Create a design strategy for a multi-page layout utilizing principles of design. Well, you guys started that last week, so we're just kind of continuing that. Identify and discuss effective composition layouts utilizing an advanced grid system, again, going forward with the next pages. Apply a well-defined grid structure to enhance visual hierarchy. Identify 4 and apply 3 advanced tools for formatting text over multiple pages to create a balanced layout. And last but not least, utilize complex character and paragraph style sheets to create consistent formatting on a multi-page layout. And like I said, a lot of this stuff you guys were had as learning objectives last week as well. So we're just kind of building upon this. So this week you will learn and apply advanced tools for formatting text over multiple pages to create a balanced layout, as well as utilizing complex character and paragraph style sheets to create consistent formatting throughout your magazine. There's a little motivational video here about success. A little whiteboard animation you guys can check out. And then don't forget, you have course media is always a great place to check out before you start anything, because every week there are required readings and videos. And this is important because your assessment 2 quiz, there'll be resources in here for this quiz as well. Good morning, Christina. Great to have you in here. We just kind of did a little overview of what we're going to be doing this week. So week 2, you guys have some articles about grids to take a look at, about creating balanced layouts. And then as you go down, the LinkedIn Learning has great resources. Here's about creating drop cap style. And we went over that the second lecture last week, since I forgot to go over that the first lecture. So it goes all the way through training of InDesign master pages, baseline grid, text formatting, and here's an optional video, link here for numbering your pages. So like I said, if you guys, there's always more ways than one to find out this information. You guys were talking about wanting to go over your folio and how to page number, but you also have resources in here too. So sometimes that's great. I will go over that again, and that's fine. But I'll always remember, if you want to problem solve as well yourself, there are resources in here too. Yep. So I just want to point that out. All right. Sometimes it's just easier to do it in review as well. Okay, so week 2, for your discussion, we're going to be discussing to grid or not to grid. Talking about grids again. So go ahead and read through the background information here. It just talks about different types of grids. Talks about column grids, manuscript grids, all the different types of grids. And then go to the prompt here. And basically what you're going to be doing for this discussion, you will research and discuss ways grid systems are used to create an effective composition layout. So you're going to choose one example of a 2-page magazine layout or an example of a 1-page advertisement and post your comments. Okay, so either a double-page spread layout or a 1-page advertisement. From the list below, identify which type of grid structure is being utilized. So you're going to look here and say which one is going to be utilized. Is it the best type of grid to use to create an effective composition layout? Maybe it's not. Maybe you found an ad or a double-page spread that's really hard to read, and maybe they could have used a different, strategy and different grid to allow it to be easier to follow and read. So always think that there could be things, examples out there that may not be so good. So if so, why not? Or if so, why? And if not, why? And how would you fix it using a different grid from the below list here? For your initial post, the following are some helpful topics to think about carefully to get your research started. So think about, what benefits do grids add to an effective composition layout? How can a well-defined grid structure help solve design challenges and communicate design concepts efficiently? Do different grids restrict the designer's ability, leaving no freedom for creativity? And how can grids take the guesswork out of where to place things on your page? So some things that you might want to, hit upon in those questions to help you get started. For your citation, you can find articles from expert designers that offer suggestions on how they apply effective composition layouts utilizing an advanced grid structure. And it just goes into how to embed the image. So you want to embed this so everybody can see it and you don't have to click on it. So if you're having issues with that, there's links there to show you how to do that. And then don't forget to hit upon all the requirements for your post as well as your response post. So when you look up, let's see here. Spread magazine example. You could just do like a regular Google search, Google image search, and you can pick one to talk about. There's a whole bunch of different, and you can go to Pinterest too. That's a great site to look up examples. These are double page spreads that you could talk about. And then you could just, drag it off and on your desktop, and you can embed it to talk about it. So there's different grids here being utilized. Okay. Any questions about that? It's pretty self-explanatory, I think. All right. Well, that'll be fun. And it'll be neat to see like different types of layouts, just to be inspired by different magazine grid structures, so that we can think about that with our own magazine. Now, it's all relative to what the magazine is like too. Obviously, you're not going to use, a lot of those are real kind of not conservative layouts. They're, very creative because of the subject. Sometimes you have to be real conservative if your magazine is more conservative. So it's all relative to the magazine that you're working on. Okay, awesome. Let's go forward here. It's all about the reader, yeah, but you wouldn't want to use like really crazy creative grid structure in a very conservative magazine. It just doesn't make sense. So you want to make it relative and appropriate. Exactly. All right. Before we get started into assignment 2, let's go over real quick because a lot of you guys had questions about the page numbers and how to do the page numbering. So let me go ahead and do that first, and then we'll get into your assignment 2. All right. Just open up my file here. So for those of you struggling, and I had made comments too, this is kind of what I saw here. So let me do a view, normal view. Okay. And let me bring up my pages so I can show you how I see yours. Those of you who are struggling with this, I can tell right away, and I can check because I open up your InDesign file here. And if I can click on this and actually edit, if this is an actual editable text box on our regular pages over here, you know, if I was able to click on this, then I know that you did it manually. And then what I usually do is when I see that, I go into your page panel and I go up to your master pages and I double click on that. And if I don't see, usually, if you do it manually on the page itself, I won't see anything on these 2 pages at all. So make sure that anytime you set up your page numbers, you want to click on your master page to set those up. You don't want to click on these pages, okay? That's how you want to start it. Always click on your master page. You have a left page and a right page, and that pretty much dictates what's going to be repeated on the left side of your pages and the right pages, left pages or right pages. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you did it correctly, if I click on your pages, I won't be able to edit this on the actual pages. It'll be locked, these folio page numbers. And how you edit them is go up to your master page, double click on that, and edit them here. So what I did is I created and I'm going to delete this so you guys can see from scratch how I did this. So on my left page, all I did was I zoomed in a little bit here and I took my type tool and I just created a box from my left margin to my right, just a type box. And when I let go, you know, obviously it's ready to type. I want it, at that point, I want to go up to type on my menu bar. Let me share my whole screen so you can see, because I know you can't see my menu unless I share my whole screen here. Okay. So with that text tool being blinking right there, you want to go up to type, insert special character, and you want to go to markers, and you want to go to current page number. That's what you want to select. And what's going to happen is it's going to pop in a little A there, and that A is going to switch, it's kind of like a placeholder for when you go back to your regular pages. That A will be assigned to each page, so that'll turn into whatever page it's assigned to. So that's a correct thing that you want to see. That's a placeholder letter form here. Then I'm going to do just like a little bullet point. It's up to you if you want to do that or not, or just a space. Bullet point, I just did with Alt Option 8, sorry. And then I'm going to do the name of the magazine. You could do another bullet point if you want. And I'm just going to do the month. Now at this point, I would say create a style sheet for this. So I would go up to styles if you don't have it up. You go to paragraph styles. We want to set the style of the font size and the font itself. And I already kind of have this set up, so I'm just going to redo this so you guys can see it from scratch. I have it set up here. So I'm going to go up to new paragraph style, and I'm going to name this folio. I'm going to name this folio 2. That way I know the difference between the first and second. since I already have one set up. And it's completely up to you what typeface that you want. I would keep it consistent with what you have. I'm using Helvetica for my headlines. So I'll use Helvetica as long as it's not a decorative font where it's hard to read smaller. I'll just do a Helvetica. And I'm going to keep this smaller than my body copy. So maybe 9 points, pretty good for that. You can do a more bold if you want to, since I'm doing a smaller point size, but it's completely up to you. The next thing that I can set is my color of my character. If you want to keep it at black, you can. If you want to make it a color of your magazine or what you've been using as, you know, a color consistent in your magazine, just make sure it's in your swatch palette so that you can select it. You can set your color there. And the other thing is your tabs, because what we're going to do is we're going to tab. The page number should always be on the outside corner, so it should be on the outside left on your left page, and then the outside right on your right page. But what we want to do is we want to tab the Fit Me and 2019, so it either is right justified on the other side where the binding is, or you can even set up Fit Me being centered and 2019 being on the right justified. The last time I did this lecture, I just did a right justified tab. But I can show you how to center it too. So this is your ruler, center part of it, I should say. So we don't want to put the tab on the A. We want to leave the A as is. But what we can experiment with is maybe centering the Fit Me magazine in the middle of the page. So with that being said, we can go ahead and choose the center arrow here. And the key to this is actually clicking above the ruler where this little gray area is. And once you click on it, it's going to set your tab. You can always edit this if you want to. But if you go in here and click and drag, you're going to see right where that margin is right about 7.5. So that's how you can kind of scroll left and right there. I'm going to set this to about 4, maybe 4.25 for my center. And I could always change that if I need to. I might have to change. I'm going to set this at 4. And then I'm going to set another one, a right justified one. I'm just going to click on the right justified all the way over here, right before this little white arrow. So about 7.5, you can actually type it in here if you want. And click OK. Now what you want to do is with that type selected, after you click OK, you want to set that style sheet. So go ahead and click on what you just created to set it. Okay. And then in order for the tabs to take place, you need to actually set the tabs in there. They're set as a style, but you need to actually physically put the tab in there for it to go where it needs to go. So let me do that. Right before the Fit Me, I'm going to hit a tab. Oops, actually, let me do, oops. Right before the bullet point, hit tab. Do a little space here. So that goes to the center, a little space before the next bullet point, and then right before 2019, I'm going to hit another tab. So what that just basically did was set it to the tabs that I had it set up. So I'll show you real quick. So if I highlight this again, and I go to edit my Folio 2 style sheet, and I go to tabs, here's my tabs here. So this is center, this is right justified. If I wanted to adjust that, let's say the Fit Me wasn't quite centered, which it looks pretty good. I can go in here, let me move, oops. Let me reset this because I screwed it up, sorry. 5. I can actually go in here and move this around. So watch what happens when I move this to the left. Nope, it just took it off, sorry. These are a little tricky. You don't want to pull it off too much or else it'll delete it. So it's kind of tricky, but you can see it's kind of moving it around. When you're done, click OK, and it should set it right there. Any questions about that? The tabs are a little tricky. Okay. The next thing is the roll line. You can set a roll above this, just a thin roll that goes above this. Double click on your folio style sheet and go to paragraph rules. And you want to select roll on. And you can give it a point size, so the thickness of the line. I'm going to do real thin, so like 0.5 is probably pretty good. I'm going to give it that same color as my text. The only thing I need to show, and if you hit preview, you can see where the line is right now. It's right below my folio. So I want it to be above. Yeah, right, Christina, I agree. So where it says offset, you want to bring that up to, I'm going to bring it up to 0.1875. And I'm going to click OK. And when I hide all this stuff, you can see the roll being placed on top here. So that's the roll line. Kind of a nice little divider between your folio information and the rest of your copy. So you don't have to add that. It's just a suggestion if you want to. I'm going to just move this up so that, or down so that that line meets that margin space there. Okay, the other thing is, let me see here. Let me double click on folio. I think, yes. Okay, so just make sure, see how I was just trying to move that and it wouldn't move to where I wanted it to? Just make sure if you do create a new paragraph style, go to indents and spacing and just make sure align to grid says none for this. That way you can move it around. It's not being stuck to like a grid. So now I can move it and it goes right on that margin line without any issues. Okay. Now, the easiest way to create the right page, because you want it to be, you want the page number to be on the opposite side of the page, is just copy this over. Just do an Alt drag. So if you hold down Alt and you drag this over, you're dragging a copy. And I showed how to do this in the last lecture. Go ahead and make sure your snap to grid, see up here, go to view, go to grids and guides, snap to guides, smart guides is checked. And that way, when you move this, it'll intuitively tell you that it's aligned with the text on the left page. It'll show these like little green lines and it'll snap it into place. That's kind of nice to have. Okay, the only problem with this is my page number is not on the right side. It's on the inside here. So I need to change that. The easiest way to do this without redoing this, kind of like before, is I would suggest just go ahead and copy the A. So highlight the A and do Command C. And go right after the 19 here and do a paste, Command V. Then just copy the date, Command C, delete that, highlight the A, Command paste. Command V for paste. I think that's the easiest way to go because, you know, you're not redoing it like you did over here. You're not messing with any of the tabs or anything like that. You're just copying and pasting. The only thing I noticed with this is the 19 isn't quite right on that margin. So I'm going to go ahead and change my tab again. And this is, you know, where you edit your tabs. So go to my tabs. And I just need to drag my tab over a little bit more to the right. So see how it's kind of off a little bit here? Tab that to the right, 7.5. Click OK, and it goes right to that edge. Same thing here. Oh, this looks pretty good. I don't have to change that because it changed it in my on both style sheets. Yep, switch places. So the A goes on the right side bottom page, A goes on the left side bottom page. So when you save this, go ahead and check it, double click on your page number in Pages, and that A, placeholder A, will change to your automatic numbering. So it'll change to 2 because it's on page 2. It'll change to page 3 because it's on page 3. So you don't even have to go in here and change every single page number. If you had a 200-page magazine and you try to manually change all the page numbers, Could you imagine how long that would take? So that's kind of the reason behind the style sheets. Yeah, I talked over my clock this time. So that's, does anybody have any questions, or are you still confused about the page numbers? Because, you know, I'd rather you stop me now and me explain it over again. And thank you. Are we all good? Don't be afraid. If, you know, you're not bothering me, I can go over it again or whatever. If you have a question, just let me know. Okay, in the meantime, you got it? Okay. Let's go into your assignment and let's get started with that. Assignment 2. This is going to be an interesting assignment because this is going to be, and you guys can read through the background here. This is going to be pretty much your 4-page feature article. Okay, so it's going to be 4 pages. So I'll read the prompt here. After completing the editorial article in week 1, it is now time to tackle the feature article, the main story in the magazine that explores a particular topic of human interest with details that makes for enjoyable reading. So for this assignment, you'll be designing your 4-page feature article. All of the assets required for the assignment are located in week 1 assignment. You will be using the same magazine choice in week 1. Of course, you won't be changing it. You're going to download the feature article folder. In the 8-page document you will set up in week 1, you will be using, so you're going to start on page 3, and you're going to design 3, 4, 5, and 6 for your feature article. So those are the pages, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Use all copy provided for feature article. Use all images. Additional images are not approved. Use linked text frames to connect feature copy from page 3 to 6. Before a layout begins, the following design elements must be established. So you can create a second master page to include the following folio elements: page numbers, magazine logo, current month and year, magazine website. We'll talk about that in a second. Define a baseline grid to align your text and images. You guys pretty much should have this set from your editorial article. So what you want to think about is the grid structure that you want to go with for your feature article. It could be a little different, just as long as you have a baseline grid that you're sticking to for your body copy. Create new paragraph and style, character styles, and apply them to the following. So you want to create a headline, paragraph style, article intro, author byline, body copy, and all this stuff. You know, you already created a body copy style, so you're good from last week. If you created an author byline, you're good. You can create a new headline if you want, or you can use the same headline style sheet that you used for your editorial. It's completely up to you. Sometimes it's good to kind of switch it up a little bit. Bulleted number list, if you already did that or not, you will have to create a new one. Drop cap, we already have that set. Subheadings and pull quotes. Does anybody know what pull quotes are? Sounds like what it is. It's quotes that you pull out from the actual story that you want to highlight. Do you ever read an article where you see that bigger and it's kind of in within the article itself, and that kind of what draws you into reading it? Yep. So that's what it is. So that's why it's important to read through your copy first, your story, so that you kind of know the important parts to pull out for your pull quotes. I did notice a lot of you, maybe not a lot of you, a handful of you, not properly packaging your InDesign file. So I'll go over that as well, just so we're all clear on that, how to do that. I had some of you just submit your InDesign file only, and that's not really the proper way to do it. You need to package your file so it includes your InDesign file, but also includes your fonts and images, so that when I open up your file, if I don't have your fonts on my computer, it's not showing as missing. Same with imagery as well. Also, once you're done packaging your file, you want to make sure you zip it before submitting it and naming it correctly. There's some benchmark examples here of students that pretty much got a good grade, that you can kind of see how they formulated their pages for this feature article. And also kind of keep in mind that this is the feature article. So you really want to make it look very visually enticing. You want to make it look visually interesting, something that kind of stands out because it is a feature article. So here's an example one from a student. And it's going to start on the right side because it's starting on page 3. And they're doing the Remodeler magazine. And you can see how they're using the logo down here and the date, the month and the day. So we can kind of switch up your folio. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do this without creating another style sheet. You can create multiple style sheets. I think it just gets a little confusing. So we'll just go and edit your first master style sheet, and I'll show you how to place the logo in there. Okay. Here is, so it starts on page 3, and then you have almost like a double page spread here. So 4 and 5, and then page 6 it will end. So you're going to have a lot of copy. Here's the pull quote up above here. Here's the other pull quote. Notice how they're treated similar in style, so it's consistent. So that's kind of what you want to do as well. Let's hit on sample 2 here before we go forward. Let's see if I can open that one. There we go. There's comments on these two, just kind of be aware of that. But this is for the Fit Me magazine. Oh, where's this? I want to hide this comment here so we can actually see what's going on. So there's definitely some changes that need to be made, but for the most part, these students did pretty well for this particular project. You can see the drop cap is treated a little differently than I showed you guys. It's dropping down about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. That's something that you can play around with. And they're actually using it, like they're using this as the beginner text. It's a little bigger. And then they start the article here with the drop cap. That's something that you can do as well. You would just need to set this up as a first paragraph style sheet. And then obviously this would be your drop cap style sheet. But make sure it's not too copy heavy. You want to kind of integrate a good balance of imagery with text. You don't want it to be too overwhelming, but you want to make sure it all fits in there as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here, and I'll kind of show you my approach to this if you guys don't have any questions. Let me move all my stuff here. Okay, so I have downloaded, and I'm sure you probably have. If not, go back to assignment 1 and download that folder, the assets folder. Let me stop sharing here and I'll show you the folder I'm talking about. So it'll be based on your magazine. This is based on mine, so Fit Me magazine. If you go to articles, what you want to look for is the feature article. And this is a Word file. Just like I told you guys before in the editorial, you want to make sure that you open up this Word file, do a spell check before doing anything. So go ahead and in Word and go up to Tools and do a, is that under Tools? Yeah, spelling and grammar check, and change anything that looks like it's not spelled correctly. Do a little spell check here. And there's purposely words that are not spelled correctly in here so that I know that you're paying attention to the lectures. If you're not changing your, you know, if you're not correcting the spelling here, I know that you haven't watched the lecture. So it's like little things like this I can kind of track you guys on, so catch ya. There's a lot of misspelled words in here. Okay, when everything's complete, you can go ahead and save it. And then I would suggest just reading through it. It's a lot of info, but you know, read through it, get the gist of the article so that you know how everything kind of breaks, what pull quotes to take out. When you're done, do Command C, or a select all, which is a Command A, or just go up to, where is it? Edit, select all, and then do an edit copy, or Command C. Right, and then go back to your, sorry for jumping around everywhere. I'm going to just share my desktop so you guys can see everything. And this page 3 is what you want to start on, okay? So I'm just, for now, I'm just going to take my type tool and I'm going to just draw one big text box, and I'm going to go Command V, which is paste. If you see, and I had some of you submit work like this with all these horizontal lines, make sure that you're not applying a style that it shouldn't be applied. So I just pasted this in here, and I had folio selected by accident because that was the last thing that we did. So if that's the case, just do a select all and make sure you're choosing body copy. Okay, and you can take out any weird spaces in there that are coming through. You know, that's kind of the weird thing about Word files is the spacing doesn't quite come through in the correct way. So there's some spacing issues that might need to be handled here. Just kind of take out extra spaces. All right, with that being said, I just copied and pasted this into this big, obviously I'm not going to keep it like this because it's too long of line length, but just for sake of getting this in here, we need another text box so we can keep linking these. So go ahead and take the type tool, draw out another one on page 4. So you have an empty one. Go back up to page 3 where you already pasted in here, and see that little red box, the very bottom corner here? That's just saying, hey, we have more copy in here, but your text box isn't big enough. So we need, you know, obviously there's text not being shown here. Go ahead and click right on that little red square. You should see kind of like a weird icon appearing with all this text. That's just saying, hey, we have your text, where do you want it placed? Go ahead and go to your text box that you created on page 4 and just click one time inside. It'll paste in. Then you just want to repeat that until you got every single page kind of in here. All your type is linked in here. And the last page will be page 6. And then we'll worry about the grid and all that good stuff in a second. And then you can kind of see how long the article is too, what you need to kind of be aware of and be mindful of spacing issues possibly. I'm just taking out extra spaces here, whoops. Okay. All right. I'm gonna just save it real quick here. The next thing that I want to do is just kind of take a look at all my other imagery that I have going on in this folder, because I know I need to put images in here, and I go to the feature images and I see that I have 5 for my feature. So just take a look at them, see how big they are, see the orientation of them, see how they work with your article, because you want to kind of use, you know, the ratio of each one based on, you know, for instance, this one's a pretty big one. I can use this in a big, you know, make it really big. This one, not so as much, you know, this one's not as big as this one, so I would use that maybe in a medium size. There's about sleeping and about running. So you would definitely want to read the article so that you'd have the proper image with where it's going to be located in your article as well. All right, so with that being said, I just took a look at that and just got a good idea of what I want to do. The next thing that I want to kind of think about is, okay, do I want to make another style sheet for the headline? Do I want this to be different than this headline? And that's okay. If you want it to be different, that's fine. I would make it so that if you are changing up the size and the overall look of it, I wouldn't do it so drastic where it's probably a different type font. I would probably keep it the same type font. Maybe just use a different emphasis on it, just for, you know, unification. So let me go ahead and select this. This is what it would look like if I kept it the same headline as this, although I think this is small headline. Let's see here. So it would be something like that if I wanted to keep the consistency. I would suggest maybe making it a little bit different because, you know, you want to keep it maybe the same typeface, but maybe change it up a little bit so it does stand out a little bit more as it being a feature headline. So with that being said, maybe, for instance, this top part, get your fittest fit ever. Let's do a new paragraph style for this one and do big headline feature. We would name that. And we'll just make this much larger. So it's 30 right now. Maybe make it, I don't know, let's try 48 just for the heck of it. And for the color, maybe we can do like a red. All right, and then what we want to do is just select that in our area here where the feature style is. Okay, and then for this one, we could duplicate this one or create a new style. Do duplicate this time, small headline, and we'll do feature. And we'll just change the character color. I'm just going to change this to black. And I'm going to do like maybe a light oblique and make that a little bit larger. Let's see what that looks like. You can always change it, kind of play around with it. See how it looks. I would keep the byline pretty much the same. So if you already kind of set a byline for your styles, just keep it the same. Actually, this looks a little different, doesn't it? Let's see here, byline. Oh, no, it's the same. I'm gonna put a little bit more space in between this here. Hold on one second. And then some spacing. Let's put 0.125. We get a little spacing in between there. And then spacing can be changed here as well. There we go. All right. Now there's, like you saw in that one article, you can create a completely different paragraph style for this very first paragraph before it actually starts into the next subhead. Like for instance, if you wanted this to be larger in point size than your body copy, sometimes magazines do that. You can even set it into a different font. You can set it to being like Helvetica, so it looks different than the regular body copy. So I'll show you how to do that. So just make a duplicate style, and I would name this first paragraph feature. And all you need to do is just change the font if that's what you want to do. So I'll do Helvetica. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger, so maybe 12. You can even change the color if you want, but I'm just going to leave it at black. And then you just go to first paragraph feature. And it kind of sets it off a little differently, which is nice. Your subheads, again, you can either use the subheads you've been using in your style guides. You can change it up if you want. Just make sure, I would say keep it consistent font-wise, but you get the idea. So I'm going to keep it very consistent with my other ones. We have bullet point copy here. And I think I already set up a style for that. So I'm just going to select the bullet point copy and bulleted copy. I'll select that in my style. I already have that set in there as being bold. The only thing I'd probably want to do is take out the extra spaces in here. So I'm just going to delete the spaces after, because it's just too spaced out, and just do a shift return, which is kind of like a soft return there. Oops. Okay, leave that there. Okay. And keep going, and then I would set, you know, obviously all your subheads to being the same, so it's consistent. So a shift return is a soft return. And what that means is you can apply a return without changing the style. So if it has a style set to it, if you do a hard return, it might not apply the style to it. The hard return treats, almost like resets the copy in a way. If that makes sense. So if you do a shift return, that's a soft return, that'll still keep the style that you have set for that type instead of, you know, resetting it completely. It's a weird thing you get kind of used to once you kind of start dealing with a lot of type here, but you'll notice if you do like a hard return, which is just a return, sometimes the styles don't apply to that next, after that return, it doesn't apply it to that next set of copy when you want it to, so. Okay, sorry, my TV came on. All right, well, a hard return, it's okay to do that if you're starting a new paragraph that doesn't have, that you don't want the style to stay. Like for instance, like this bulleted copy has a different style, paragraph style to it. So this has a different treatment than the regular body copy. So if I were to do, like I just did a hard return there. So I just hit a delete and then I did a hard return. Look how it like reset my style. Like right now I have a little plus sign next to it. I don't want that to happen. So if I do a shift return, let's see here, go back to my, there we go. If I do a shift return, it should keep that. Let me supply, there we go. Oh wait, I don't want to do that. Redefine style. No, sorry. Redefine style, apply, override. It's just gonna affect the way that this style is treated. So, you know, you can see that's redefining it right now. It's the copy here actually should be body copy. So when I select body copy, see how it affects the copy up here? That's because I have a, let me see here. Let me go back to body copy. There we go. It's going to affect how this is applied. So I don't want the bulleted copy to be added to this type here. I want this to remain like the body copy style, and I want this to be the bulleted copy style. So watch what happens when I change just this to bulleted copy. See how it affects this copy up here? That's because I have a shift return there, a soft return. I want a hard return. So when I do a hard return, which is a regular return, watch what happens when I change this. it allows me to apply my bulleted copy text, but it doesn't change the type before it. And that's what a hard return does. A soft return kind of changes whatever's before that text to that style that you set it to. Or it kind of redefines the style like I just did here. See how that just did that? So that's like, if you're running into the weird spacing issue here, that's probably why you have a soft and a hard return. Okay. And it also depends on like how you have your style set up as far as spacing, because I think I have space after your body copy, so that's why there's a big space here. So you can definitely adjust that too. It's just in your style settings. Okay, so have everything pretty much set out how you want it to be. You can treat different words in here differently, but you know, as far as creating a new character style for maybe making certain words bold, like for instance, at the very end of this article here, it says, good luck on your fitness goals and remember to never give up on your dreams. So you can even create a new style sheet for that. Do new style, duplicate style, but make this maybe just bold. And we'll just name this body copy bold. And because it's more than one word, we want to just do a paragraph style and not a character style. I'm just going to do bold italic. You can kind of set that differently there. But read through this, and what I would suggest you do is after you place all your styles in here, just read through this. Make sure that you're picking out certain parts of this that are the most important. You need 2 pull quotes. And typically pull quotes aren't like really long sentences. I would keep it to like 1 or 2, 1 short sentence. You know, I wouldn't do like a paragraph if you can avoid that. Just because you know, you don't want people to have to worry about reading a whole thing of a paragraph of a pull quote. And you're going to be using that bigger and larger in your layout. So you want to make sure you have enough space. And I know the remodeling magazine, for instance, you're going to need a little bit more room. You have a lot of copy to work with. Not to scare you or anything, but okay, the next thing that we can deal with is, and it looks like I don't have it here. Did I save this before? It's only if you want to, I mean, it's completely up to you to base it on another style. That's typically if you're using a style sheet in your, okay, say you're going to create a character style, you can base it on a paragraph style, keep that same style in terms of text, but then just kind of create a different emphasis on that letter. So it should have been saved, yeah. I'm trying to see if I did the drop cap. I don't think I actually saved that. I'll show it to you again so that you guys, because I didn't have the drop cap saved in here. For some reason, I guess I didn't save it before I closed out. The drop cap, and we'll go over this again because it's always good to review it anyway. If you want to add a drop cap, like say for instance, you want to add a drop cap here, you're going to have to create a new paragraph style. So go ahead and select body copy and say duplicate style, and I would name this drop cap. Everything should be pretty similar. The only thing that you need to change is the drop caps. Go ahead and change your lines of where you want that letter to drop down. So the more lines you drop down, the bigger the drop cap will be. So for instance, if you choose 2, it'll drop down 2 lines of text. So 2 sentences. Let's do a pretty big one. Let's do 6 lines, 1 character. And we're just going to say none for character style. We'll just leave that. You can change the font. So let's say if I wanted to do Helvetica because it's based on my other my subheads and my headlines, I can, you know, choose that. I'm going to leave that to be the same point size because it's going to basically leave the same point size because it's just going to drop it down. It's going to make it larger based on the sentences that you allowed to drop down at. The only thing you have to worry about is at this point, maybe if you want to give it a color. Okay, so let's click OK. And let's select this type, just the first paragraph. And we're going to choose drop cap. Oh, you know what I did? I actually did this wrong here. Hold on. This is actually changing the type itself, and I don't want that to actually happen. I want to keep this pretty much the same typeface. And I think I did this before. I kind of screwed up here. Let me change this back to Times. Say if you don't want to use Times for this, and let me change it back to black here. Like let's say you wanted to just only change the drop cap, which this doesn't look bad, but for it to connect more with my headline, I'd probably want to change it to Helvetica. So you would do everything in your drop cap. So the only thing that I misstepped here was in your basic character format, I would leave it to your font family that you chose for your body copy. Everything should not be changed here. If you want to change the color and the typeface, this is how you would do it. So everything else that I showed you, you would do. So you would just do a duplicate body copy, rename it as drop cap, set the drop cap here to how many lines that you want, and that's it. If you want to change the font and color or color, you'll do a character style. So you'll just select that P and go to character style and choose new character style. And then we'll just name this drop cap. This is where you can change it to a different font if you want to, so Helvetica. And then you can change the color here. And then go ahead and change it to that drop cap style. I think I did that the last time that I was showing you how to do that. So since I made this bigger than what I showed before, I'm going to have to adjust this because my copy on page 7 is now different. So I'm just going to make this a little smaller here. We work through it, right? And get through all this stuff here together. We learn from each other, and that's what matters. All right. Let me pull her down a little bit, see if I can adjust the copy a little bit better here. It looks like I have a bad break here, so let me see if I can change this up a little bit. You'll be all in the same style. Yep. I'm just kind of playing around with the space around my image here. There must be a weird space here. No. Let me pull her up here. Maybe that'll be better. No, let's pull her up here. Trying to get a good balance without weird breaks up here. What I could try too, oh, that actually works, but my subhead's all weird now. My draw, see how I just use, just changing that, just kind of changed everything. Let me bump this up a little bit. Let's see if I can get one more line up here. Make it a little smaller. And then see if that adjusts down here. That's actually not too bad, although I don't like how it breaks the bulleted copy there. Let's see if I can go up a little bit. There we go. But now see how I have 2 lines of text here, not one. That works. Okay. I'll leave that. But that's how you would do the drop cap there. And if you wanted to apply the same drop cap to this information the same way, all you would have to do is, let's say we would start this with the E here. You would just choose the drop cap, but we would do drop cap, yeah, right here. And then just make sure you use the same character style if you want to keep it consistent. Okay, so that's kind of the tricky part there. The next thing is imagery. Think about what images you're going to use, how you're going to do this, your overall layouts. For this one, I kind of already thought about certain things, so I'm going to go ahead and try something different here. I'm going to pull this down, and I'm going to do kind of like almost like a 1/3 type of a layout here. So I'm going to have maybe the image come up here and bleed off the top and be close to my headline. So almost like a focal point. And for this one, I'm going to choose my, let's see, editorial images, feature images is what I want. So let's do the senior exercising. This will work well here. And you can place in your imagery in any way that you want to do this. The thing that I want you guys to be more aware of is how you make the style of your feature. And because you don't want your editorial to look too similar to your feature. You want to make it look a little different so that you have, you know, people and readers know that, okay, we're into a new article here. This looks different. The style's different. So there's many things that you can do. You could even set a color block behind here as long as it's relative to your magazine. And I just took a sample out of that image that I just placed there. You can set that behind your copy as long as it's not too dark. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my properties and make that transparent so it's not so dark. So I'm going to go to the fill, and I'm going to actually go to the transparency here. I'm going to dial this down to about, I don't know, let's do like 20% of that color. And I just sampled with the eyedropper tool this woman's shirt here. So that kind of sets it off a little different. You can see from the editorial to here, this is a completely new article. So you could do it that way. There's so many different ways that you can do it. You can even set up some really cool little like design features where maybe you add to this image where you're kind of, let me get my swatches up here, adding different design elements. And let me pull maybe. And now that I'm looking at this, I would probably change the color of my headline because it's not going to work with these certain images and certain things that I'm doing here. I just did a line, and I'm going to do maybe white. And in that line, I'm going to go to my properties and see where it says stroke. I'm going to change this to like dots and make them a little bit bigger so you can see them. So you can do something like that. And now at this point, I probably would change my styles. So maybe changing this to a color that's in my picture. You would have to actually add this to your swatches too. So let's do that. So I'm going to select that purple color and double click on the fill and just add RGB swatch. Same thing with the blue. Now I'm just pulling from this image. You have other images included in your feature. So, you know, make sure that, you know, it's something that works all across the board. I'm just going to change this just to show you that, you know, you can make this more cohesive looking too in a different way. Oops, you change this in character. Now, if you did this, say you use the same subhead in your editorial as your feature, and you wanted to change the color, you can either create, you can actually do just a new character style for this. And we'll name this feature subhead. And then just choose your color here. And you could change it to that color. So it kind of works for this. The only thing is it'll change this one. So you might want to create a completely new duplicate style and just change the color to red for this one. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the best color choice for this, but I'm just showing you how to change that if you want to. The next thing is, what's wrong with this right now? As you see, what would you change here? Particularly with the body copy. It's hard to read. Why is it hard to read? I agree. Font is small. Okay. Yeah, well, the font is the font, like the font's fine. It's the line length. Hold on one second, Karen. I'll get to your question there. So it's the line length, right? Look at the line length. Do you guys remember what I said about what the rule is for how many characters in a line? 72. Yeah, close. So you want to make sure your line lengths aren't very long, because it's hard, once you get to a certain amount of characters on a line, it's hard to follow and hard to read. So what would you suggest me doing here in this situation? Bring up the word count. Remove and after green. Oh, you guys are thinking here. Probably shorten the line length, right? So how would I do that? Yep, shorten it up. All right, so so I would do that by creating columns, right? Because right now it's just one column. So I would go to text frame options. Now watch what happens when I do this. So I select the text frame, and then I go up to text frame options, and I hit preview so I can see what happens when I click on this. And the number of columns changes based on what I select here. It's also applying it to my headline and my first paragraph of text. If you don't want that to apply to that, you're going to have those as separate text boxes. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what I mean by that is it's affecting that whole text box. So if I wanted to, let me hit cancel. if I didn't want it to affect this part, I'm going to copy and delete it out of here. I would pull this down. I would take my type tool. Let me get my guides up here. And I would just do a completely new text box and do a command paste. And what that's going to do is that's going to be so I can control this copy without affecting the copy below here. So if I wanted to say, for instance, maybe only do 2 columns here, and then I can make this 3 columns, I could do that separately. Now I would adjust this, but I just wanted to show you that's how that's done. So, you know, if you wanted to play around with that, you can definitely do that. You could put even like a little line here, you know, play around with the separation of everything. Let me go to my swatches. Let's see. Let's do like a thin line. Kind of a nice little divider here. You can do something like that. The only thing is I would have to mess with how this is being broke here. There we go. And like you know, with everything, it can be massaged a little bit so it's better in terms of how everything's kind of breaking. Like for instance, this is a bad hyphen. I would do a shift return. Kind of play around with this a little bit. And then obviously this is kind of too spaced out here, so I'd have to play around with that. But that's kind of how you would deal with that if you didn't want to have everything kind of affected. Let me go back here. If you wanted to, that's fine too. It kind of works sometimes the other way, but it's completely up to you and how you want to have your, oops, I'm going back too far here. Trying to catch up. How you want it to be laid out. I'm gonna just click on 2 to keep it simple. In terms of like based it on the same style, that question that you had asked before, it's really if you don't want to create a new style like a paragraph style altogether, you can base it off of this, you know, if you don't want to duplicate the same style, you can base it off a similar style. So let me let's see here, subhead. I think we changed this. So right now, this is based on the byline. I don't know why that's actually based on the byline. Let's click no paragraph style. We don't want it to be based on the byline. Click OK. We want that to just be a regular subhead, so that shouldn't be like that. Did we create another subhead? No, I thought we did. Oh, character style. That's no, we didn't. Okay. I actually went back in saving. That's why I'm redoing this here. Let's see here. Subhead purple. No, I think I had blue actually. So you could change it that way too. It's completely up to you. It's a little easier if you say, you know, duplicate another subhead, just go ahead and duplicate it instead of going and changing it each time, especially if you have more than one subhead. In the character styles, it's just easier to change it here, and then it kind of automatically changes it. Oh, I said purple, but it's blue. All right. Give me 1 second. So that's kind of a different way to handle things. Whatever you repeat, whatever you show here, like design wise. So if you decide to add features like this, just little, and make sure they don't get in the way of the information. So you don't want it to be too extravagant. But say for instance, you wanted to do something like this, you want to carry that through your other pages. So you want to make sure that that's consistent, you know, and somewhere present on your other pages. That way the reader knows, you know, that you're on the same consistency and pattern, kind of allows the reader know that they're on the same article, and that unifies everything. So I'm going to just place that on my artboard, and I'm going to work with that in a second. Okay. What I would suggest you guys do for the double page spread, this is kind of like the mecca of all designers love double page spreads, because it allows you to really do some really cool things instead of just having it be like a one page with columns like this. Like you can do some really cool things to unify the two pages together without it looking boring and bland. So you have all this space to work with. You just have to make sure that you have enough space. Like right now, I know I have this much space to work with. So I can kind of play around with some things on this page, but you have the space to kind of make it look really cool if you want to, so that it's not all copy heavy. So I'm going to go ahead and do something different here. I'm going to kind of put an image almost like it's almost the full page here. And I'm going to go Command D to place my image. And I'm going to use this one because I think this is kind of a cool image. Yep, more creative space. Oops. Yeah, great. That's awesome. Yep. So I'm going to try this and kind of manipulate my columns to see if this works. Yes, I was. Yep. I remember that. Now there's different things that you can do. You can either pull this, see how this whole text box is behind this image. You could pull this so it kind of is only the one. That's kind of what I would do instead of applying a column to this particular text box, just because it's just one column. So I would just pull this, have enough space in between your image, and just make sure it's wide enough so that it's readable. And then maybe for this page, you can go in and actually change the number of columns, so it's a little different. But see how I kind of integrated this a little bit. Let's see how much room we have. You know, we're gonna just barely make it here, and we can kind of adjust this as we go forward. Let me go ahead and take that off. And what I would like to do is, once I place all my images in here, just make sure all the colors make sense. Because right now that purple and blue color doesn't quite, it makes sense with this image, but not quite this image. So we're gonna kind of re-examine that once we get all of our images in here. The other two images, and I'm gonna just have them over here on the side so I remember, yeah, I need to put this in here too, based on where it is in the actual article. And it doesn't have to be really big, it can be small too. I have two more here. That I can place in here. Okay. One is a woman with her dog. The other one is about sleeping. So there is a exercise improve sleep section here that this obviously would go well with. Maybe this one would go well with the bullet points here, staying motivated, or maybe somewhere in here, join a health club. Cardio training might be good there as well. So just, you know, reading through the article will help you know where to put that next image. Okay. Ooh, my battery's dying here. Why don't let's take a 5-minute break. I'm going to plug my computer in to get some battery life here. And then I will continue on. I'll show you kind of what to pay attention to with pull quotes. And we will kind of adjust this as we go forward here, just like I was showing you. And then we can play around with the folio as well. I don't want to die. Look, I have 7% left here. So let me go plug in. Let's take a break. That way you guys can, get some more coffee or whatever, tea, get some chocolate, some caffeine. Okay. All right. See you guys in 5 minutes here. All right, can you guys hear me? All right, we're plugged back in, ready to go. Sorry about that, guys. Good time for a break. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I go forward with anything that I've gone through so far? No. Okay. Let me just do something real quick. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do the pull quotes, and then what we'll do is kind of wrap it up. And since I went over a lot of stuff today, we tomorrow we have another lecture, but I will continue that lecture. I will continue on with this the next lecture, if that makes sense. That way, it kind of gives you guys some room to kind of digest this information. You know, it's not a ton. I know I've been talking a lot, so I don't want to give you guys too much to think about. We'll kind of separate it out a little bit, since you guys really only have to do the quiz, which, you know, it's important, but we don't really have to go over that. We'll just continue on with this. Okay, so just the last couple things, and then we'll save the rest for the next time, and I'll have some time to open up for critique if you want to show anything or have any questions about, is the pull quotes. So think about what you're going to use for your pull quotes. I am going to, let's see, use this pull quote that I found right here, or a quote from here. Keep your house stocked with the right food. Cravings are evident if you have almonds in your cupboard instead of junk food. Then you are more apt to eating healthier. So just like a little tip there that I think would be good to kind of highlight as a pull quote. And there's, you know, depending on the space that you have, you can have the pull quote either be kind of within your text or even with an image. So first of all, let's go ahead, and I'm going to kind of put this over here, because I think this would work well if it was just kind of overlaid a little bit on this area in the image area here. So I'm going to go ahead, and I don't have too much room, so I have to be mindful of that too. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a color that I think would work best here. And I can change this. I think I'm going to do a lot of changes once I pull everything together here. For instance, I can kind of pull from the image here, just like I did in the beginning for color. So go ahead and make, you know, a consistent color here. You can also, you don't have to use a full color. You can use a transparent color too for your type, as long as it's readable. And then I'm going to do a text box in here, so it's over top of my block. And you don't have to do a block. I just decided, since I'm doing it over this image, that I'm going to do a color block. And then I'm just going to paste in that pull quote. Now, of course, the pull quote should really be emphasized. So it should be larger than your body copy. It should be readable, and it should be highlighted. It should kind of pop out from everything. So we're going to make a new style for that. So we're going to go to paragraph style, and we're going to go to new paragraph style. We're going to name this pull quote. And what you need to do is keep this consistent. So the other one should have the same style to it, based on the, you know, if the type color changes, because you have one over a color block and the other one's in the type. That's the only change that would need to be made. But the same style should be applied overall, as far as the typeface that you choose. You know, if you have, for instance, if you want this in all caps, that should all be the same and be consistent. Let's try that. Okay. I'm going to choose white, just because that's the most contrasted in terms of color here. And then I'm going to choose select all, pull quote, and just see how that looks. Now you might need to adjust the, you know, if it's not big enough, you might need to adjust the point size. You might need to adjust the size of your quote or your text box. See kind of how that looks. And that's actually not too bad. That's a 14-point So that's it. It can be bigger if you want. You know, you can go really extravagant with this too. You know, you can go much bigger with this if you want. Kind of play around with it and see what you like. But it definitely should be bigger than your body copy. And make sure it doesn't have a line to grade. Go to indents and spacing and choose none. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. And there we go. The next thing that I would suggest, and I'm going to put more leading in here because I think it's a little hard to read, is putting quotation marks in here. Sometimes these can be treated differently too. You know, I've seen them where they're real big. That would be definitely a character style if you wanted to do something like that. So you could do a new character style, quotation marks. Let's say you want that to be like really big. Let's do like 48. See how that goes. The only thing with that is you have to change where it's positioned because it's so big that the position of it's not going to work. You know, it's way above your lines there. So in that case, I would say, let's see here. Oh wait, not tracking. What are we doing? 0. Vertical scale, character. Okay, we want, that's not it. We might not have the option in here. Didn't even think about that. That might be something you would have to do. If you wanted it bigger than here, let's go to none. You might actually have to do a completely new paragraph style if you want it to be bigger because this has more options as far as character styles in here than the other character. Character styles are good for bold if you want to make something bold or color. But as far as the other features, you can see that there's more options here. Let's see what we got here. That's in spacing. I never actually changed this in here. That's why I'm kind of, this would be probably, this would actually be your baseline shift. So let me find this here. None. Yeah, you might not even have options in here. Let me see if I can change it in my character style first. Character palette here first, and then we'll go forward. Sometimes that's easier to do it that way. Give me 1 second here, guys. Okay, there we go. Let's give it a no. Oops. Let's see that. Okay. What we might have to do is actually pull this out completely because it's going to probably affect the rest of this once I change it. This is what I was looking for right here. So this is where you would set your your sentence tracking here. This is your well, this is the leading. I don't want that. Hold on. Oh no, this is what I want. Sorry. Baseline shift is what I wanted. This is what I couldn't find in the styles. Baseline shift. Let me just double click on this and see real quick if I see a baseline shift in here. Because I didn't see it before. Baseline shift right here. Aha. There we go. That's where we want to change it. I'm just wondering if that will probably have to be a completely different, yeah, we're gonna have to do, let me cancel this. We're getting there, right? I never did it this way, so that's why I'm kind of, let's do a quotation mark. And let's make that bigger. Okay, and then baseline shift, we want that to be, I believe, in the negative. Let's just do -10. Yeah, see, we kind of have to separate it from this. Okay. So I'm just going to delete that altogether. And if you wanted to do something stylistic like this, you'd have to do a completely new, new type box here with the quotation mark. That way it's not affecting the rest of your type. And then let's do a, hold on one second here, quotation marks. We want a double right quotation mark. There we go. So if you wanted to do it, it might just be as easy as just creating a new type box. If you wanted to do this bigger, and some articles do this with theirs where they'll make like the quote really, really big, quotation marks, and add it in there. I'm not sure if this looks like the best that it can be, but you get the idea here. And then obviously you would just copy this and you would change the position of this by either typing it in or going up to that quotation mark area that I showed you before. And if you do this, I would definitely offset this. Same with this. Kind of offset it a little bit. So I think that's probably the best option to do if you wanted to do something different with the quotes. Just giving you an option if you want to play around with that. I'm going to pull this so that bleeds off the left there. Okay, not too bad. Just have a weird little hyphen right here that I might want to deal with. Let's see if we can pull this over a little bit more or a little less. See if we can bump it down maybe. Let's see. Kind of bump it maybe more into the text here. If you do that, you would definitely need a text wrap. So I'll show you how to do that. I showed you that with pictures. We'll show you that here in a second. Okay. And I'm just evening up my margins, making sure it's all equal. Okay, there we go. And I'm gonna pull all of this just down a little bit so it's on that same baseline. Okay, that looks good. Then I'm gonna select this box because right now it's going right over the type there. And I'm gonna go up to my text wrap and I'm gonna choose the second option here. Now I wanted to show this to you because this is important to understand. This is a little tricky too. If you don't group your elements, like for instance, if you don't group your text with your box will be affected in terms of bringing it forward when you add a text wrap. So what you need to do before adding a text wrap, if you have any elements like text on top that you want to keep, you want to select all of your text, shift select your box, go up to object and group before you do any text wrap. That way it's going to see the whole element and not hide your text. Your text was just behind that block because we didn't group it. And now you can set your space. That's the safety space around that. Does that make sense? So that would be, okay, so that's the first pull quote. I would make the second one pretty similar in style, just so it's cohesive. And the second one, you can do a little differently, but keep it cohesive. The second one I'm gonna do, and let me set these so this isn't one column, do like maybe 2 column here. It's gonna involve the other image that I have, the sleeping one. I think this is kind of cool, this one here. Try and get at least 8 hours of sleep each night. Exercise is good for improving the length of depth of your sleep. Okay, so you can decide on what you want to do for the second pull quote. I'm going to do this one as my second pull quote option. And you could treat it, like I said, you could treat it a little differently. For this one, I'm going to keep the same size. The only difference is I'm going to have it so it's not like a block behind it. So this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to take just like a regular block with white behind it. I'm going to give a stroke of, let's see, color here. So instead of giving it a fill, I'm just going to give it a stroke color. Maybe that red. And I'm going to give it actually a paper fill. Let me swap these out here. So it's white behind there. And I'm going to take my type tool and I'm going to go ahead and pull out a text box. Make sure you have enough margin space around. I'm going to do a paste and then add the pull quote. Now, the only thing with this is my pull quote above here is white. I want this to be red. So I'm going to duplicate this pull quote. So new duplicate style sheet, and I'm going to just name this red. So everything's the same except for the color. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of adjust my type box here. Based on how much room I need. That looks good. And then again, my quote boxes, I can just kind of grab off of here. Now, if I ungroup this, it's going to be here. Let me copy this actually before I ungroup it. I'm going to copy and paste this. Oops, I didn't grab everything. That was all together. There we go. Okay. Ungroup this. I'm just going to steal my quote marks here. So that way I don't have to redo them. Now, of course, they're going to be red instead of white. So you just need to change that if you decide to do something like that. But it's, you know, consistent. Okay, hold on 1 second. Try and get this in here. All right. Another thing that you can do is add the image in there with it, you know, so you can play around with that too. Let me pull this out so we can kind of play around with that. I can grab all of this. There we go. So you could do something like this too, where the image goes inside. Bring the front, and then we want to fit it proportionately in there. And maybe we'll just end it here. there's like a weird, see if I can get this to, there we go, bump a little bit better. There was like a hyphen there I wanted to fix. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to group this, and then I'm going to add a text wrap, just like I showed you before. Group, text wrap, and then we kind of add our space around here, like a 1/8 space here. And then you can kind of move this around. Now, obviously, this is nice to be by the sleep part of this article. So right here's the sleep part of the article. So seeing how you could relate it to that by moving it closer to it is probably the better way to go. So it kind of reads together and it views together. I might bring this up just slightly here. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. So when you're talking about, let me see here, hold on. When you're talking about, yeah, I see that. When you're talking about styles and duplicate styles and all that good stuff. So basically, if I can like clear my throat here, when you're basing it on a next style, you can automatically pretty much apply styles as you type the text. So for example, if your document style calls for the style body text to follow pretty much like a heading style, so if you have like a headline, you can set the next style option for that heading 1 to your body text. Excuse me. So it's kind of like, it's an easy way to link it to other styles like headlines and subheads. Excuse me. When you duplicate a style, you're just duplicating the complete style over, and you can change within that style what you want it to be. Excuse me. I can go over that more tomorrow in detail if that's a little confusing to you. Yeah. I can't talk right now. I'm just being like clearing my throat. I apologize. I just got like a frog in my throat. Yeah, I'll go over that. We're kind of running out of time. I'll go over that more tomorrow. Try to clarify that with you guys. There is a lot more to do in here, so we're going to stop kind of where we're at, and I will go forward with any questions that you have tomorrow. I will also show you how I will finish this up so that it evens itself out, things to kind of look at and be aware of. Also, we need to change the folio so that we have the logo down here and some other things to take care of. And then what I'll do is I'll just work to unify all of my pages so they don't look like separate articles. So I'll show you some tips and tricks to unify all 4 pages a little bit better, because right now it's all kind of different colors and the elements aren't quite unifying as of yet. But I'll show you that tomorrow, how I'll kind of pull all of that together so it looks like one unified article. Does that sound good? Since we don't have too much to go over tomorrow, we'll be kind of doing a little review for your quiz on certain things, like different types of grids to think about that will help you with your quiz and also your discussion. So we'll go over some of that stuff, but we'll kind of balance everything out by finishing up today, tomorrow. Does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap it up? No? Okay. Hopefully that helped you with the folio, the page numbering. For those of you who have questions, tomorrow I'll go over how to package your file, because I didn't get to that yet because we're not finished. So we'll be doing that as well, and talking about other important things for this week. All right. If you want to show anything tomorrow too, we'll definitely have time to do so. Just have your file ready, and we'll share your screen if you're able to. In the meantime, if you can't be in the live lecture and say you want me to check out your files, email them to me. Just make sure you package them before sending them, package and zip it. Send them to me through email. I can take a look at it before you submit them. If you cannot be in the live lecture and we can't look, we don't have time to look at your work, then that's another option if you want, a second eye before you submit it. All right, guys. Don't forget to also make those changes from week 1 to your editorial before moving forward into your feature. All right, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Jeremy and Christina. We will wrap it up tomorrow with everything. Hopefully all your questions will be answered, and just get started on your discussions in the meantime. Yep, exactly. All right, guys, have a great one, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Okay, have a great one. Thanks, Christina.